All right. Oh, we are back. Zach. Well, this is the A to Z Sports Big Orange podcast. Charlie Burr, Zach Reagan. Um, midweek segment that we didn't know we were going to be having. Zach, I started that last show, and I said something like, "Oh, it's been a quiet week. Not much has happened, but around Tennessee, there's always something to talk about." Well, relative to what's happened in the last 2 days, there was really nothing to talk about on Monday. Come Tuesday, the announcement came out that Tennessee is being investigated by the NCAA, and then Tennessee, in short, turned around and has taken a flamethrower to the NCAA. It's been a wild couple days, man. What's up?
Yeah, I guess got to be careful what you ask for. But
No kidding.
some of us are celebrating this day. And,
Oh,
if anybody watches us or has listened to us over the last couple of years, or Charlie when he was in radio, you know that he's been waiting for the day that somebody goes after the NCAA in such a way that there's lawsuits that perhaps it's the beginning of the end for the NCAA, and the fact that it's Tennessee at the forefront of it just feels so poetic at this moment. We all knew it was coming. We didn't know who it would be, but it's Tennessee of all schools. I mean, maybe we should have saw that coming.
I can't believe it. I mean, it makes sense in this scenario, I guess.
Yeah,
But I seriously not trying to toot my own horn, but this goes all the way back to when I was on with Swain and years and years ago. I remember I used to take grief because I've been banging this drum so hard for years and years now of just in the NCAA. The NCAA is a corrupt cartel of just degenerate bureaucratic losers. They do nothing of value for anyone. And I beat that drum just a tad too hard back then. But now I was a man ahead of my time because I think that tide has truly turned. And the fact that Tennessee, because of this situation, is now at the forefront of potentially completely altering the future of the NCAA makes me. I said it to you right before we started recording. This is Christmas Day. I can't believe it. I can't believe it. This is my finest hour. I've worked. I have tried so hard to speak this into existence, and it really is here. I mean, I saw just a little bit ago, Andy Staples, I think he posted something that said this is the big one. And that essentially this lawsuit that Tennessee is filing against the NCAA has the potential to effectively strip the NCAA of all of its enforcement power, at the very least in the college football realm. And I can't believe it. Let's start here. To the uninitiated, let's just go through the timeline of what's happened. You've dove way down deep into this, Zach. Also, we have Craig, who works with us, who's literally a lawyer. This morning, went and found the lawsuit, sent it to us, and we've been getting down into this, but just correct me if I'm wrong on any of this stuff. The initial thing was the stooge of all stooges, Tom Forty, Pat Forty, Tom Forty, who Tom Forty,
who
uh,
cares what his name is really at this point?
yeah, 40, that loser. He comes out. He has an axe to grind with Tennessee. He hates us, and he comes out with what I am undoubted. I am certain he thought was an incredible gotcha on Tennessee. He drops this news that an investigation is coming, and it's very vague. It's like, we're not sure what the details are, yada yada. And then Dennis Dodd, another absolute stooge for the NCAA, he comes out and he says, "Oh, it has to do with the Nico Iamaleava case," and it just is this slow trickle of things. And then Dondi Plowman, the chancellor of the University of Tennessee, an absolute boss. God bless this woman. I don't know who hired her, whose decision that was, where that came from, what hiring committee found her at whatever institution she was at before. But Lordy, she's sharp as an absolute tack and put out a statement that emptied the clip on the NCAA. I mean, really just brought the heat. And we can go into some of that, and I'm certain that we will. And then, I mean, past that, it was just kind of this slow. A lot of people just talking about it all yesterday, but then this morning, maybe did I miss anything from the first day, Zach? I
I
think
mean, the brief overview is that this report comes out from Pat Forty. They're investigating Tennessee because of NIL dealings and multiple athletes. It's not just Nico; it's
yeah, it's
multiple. But Nico is the smoking gun on this, right?
right.
I think Forty thought he had really the scoop on this, and it turns out that obviously all of his information, all that's coming from the NCAA side of this,
Yes,
obviously. Well,
he's in deep with that for
the
sure.
people he's not in as deep as the New York Times because those are the people that
That's
had
true.
the actual. So 40 might think he's one of their guys, and he is, but they just use him to put out whatever they want. The New York Times, I think they were saving that bullet for Tennessee's response because that came out kind of after the letter that Chancellor Davenport wrote to the NCAA president Charlie Baker.
Chancellor
And,
Davenport. Chancellor Davenport is what you just said. The
oh,
previous
I'm sorry.
chancellor.
Yes, Plowman.
See?
Well, when you were going on about who hired Donde Plowman, I was thinking about it. She's here because of the Davenport era and kind of the
Yeah.
blaze of glory that she went out with after the uh, before she fired. She fired John Curry and all that. So yeah, Chancellor Plowman sent this letter to the president of the NCAA, which we get into. New York Times then publishes this article that says, "Hey, it's a plane ride at the crux of this. Like that's the smoking gun." Because I'd went earlier and found some reporting from the Athletic in 2022 that the lawyer that drafted Nico's NIL deal straight up said like there's nothing in this that ties him to Tennessee. The collective is taking a huge leap of faith by promising him this money because he could take it and run and go somewhere else. Like there was nothing that tied him to Tennessee, and that was so they could avoid the pay for play type stuff and all that. And Danny White talked about that at the time that there's a line in the sand. So all that stuff, Tennessee was on the up and up. Apparently, there's a plane ride that was set up, and that's kind of what carried us into this morning when really the story truly
Oh,
exploded with the lawsuit, and
yes.
that's
So,
the big thing here.
yes, I yesterday my take on it was this: if Tennessee had truly played their cards correctly and dotted their i's, crossed their t's, and not slipped up anywhere, this is such a golden opportunity to take a run at the NCAA because it just sets up perfectly. Obviously, they're coming at you with illegal enforcement. This is, there are people who are preying on Tennessee's downfall, but the fact is, the NCAA, and make no mistake, to the Kentucky fans and the Alabama fans that were giving Tennessee grief, they will come for you. You're next.
Oh yeah,
They will come for you too because
you should join the lawsuit now.
yes, this is all coming from a report that's really from months ago, if I'm remembering correctly, where the NCAA is has a set of schools that they have in mind and they're coming after. And if your school's been blatantly doing NIL stuff, which is a ton of schools,
Pretty much
you're in,
every Power
you're in,
Five school.
yeah, you're in the crosshairs. That's it's anybody. It could be any of you.
And it doesn't matter when you did it either, apparently,
No,
because Nico's deal was pre updated guidelines. In May of 2022, the NCAA decides that collectives are now boosters, which I don't know how they can make that designation.
and it's a guideline, not a rule, by the way.
Yeah.
Just for yeah.
And they decide, and this is what the chair of the board of directors said, who is the president at Georgia, of course it is, that they
Unbelievable.
could retroactively punish programs for things that happened in the previous 10 months whenever when NIL became legal. So they could punish programs for breaking a rule that was not yet a policy. He said, and he has since been proven to be a liar, that they weren't going to go after those programs unless it was just something totally outrageous, which I don't think a plane ride is outrageous. He said their focus was on the future. And so far, all they're doing, they're going after Tennessee. They're going after Florida for a player that didn't even sign there. Like Tennessee and Florida are the most unlikely of allies in this whole situation because they're both facing a completely ridiculous situation with the NCAA. Like it's a clown show of an investigation on both ends for Tennessee and Florida. But yeah, I mean, they're looking back 2 years ago when Caleb Downs is announcing an NIL deal the day after he transfers to Ohio State, but I'm sure that's all on the up and up. I'm sure that came together very quickly within hours.
Great example. Yeah. I'm sure that the second he announced he was leaving, they sat down that second they sat down at the negotiation table and hammered out that agreement. Yeah. Yeah, good example there. But no, I mean the NCAA obviously we know is a clown show, and actually we'll get into this. There's this, of course, this rabbit hole is 10 miles deep. The NCAA has released a statement, and we can talk about that. That happened as we've been doing this. Um, but yeah, so we get to day 2, and to me, it started off with I think it started off with the statement from Spire Sports's attorney Tom Mars, who's well known as someone who's beat up the NCAA. I mean, he's been a part of multiple cases like this, and they released a statement that basically said, "We did nothing wrong. Bite me." That was the long and the short of it. Just a snippet here on, and this was on all concerning Nico's contract. The commercial reasonableness of the agreement between Spire and Nico was evidenced by a recitation that Spire anticipated Nico would eventually be drafted by an NFL team. The agreement also specifically acknowledged the restrictions prohibiting the use of any school's team's logo or insignia. In short, the agreement was fully consistent with the then existing NCAA NIL guidelines. Again, guidelines, not rules, guidelines, and had nothing to do with the recruiting of Nico to the University of Tennessee or any other school. They basically said, it is inherent that it had to do with the recruiting of Nico to Tennessee, but the agreement, the legal agreement between Spire and Nico had nothing to do with the University of Tennessee. And that's where I get into what I said, where as long as Tennessee did, hit all their bases and made sure that they zipped everything up tight, they should be just fine here, because I think Spire, clearly they're working with arguably the most powerful anti-NCAA attorney out there, and they're willing to go hard in the paint too. And this all tells me, because what happened next tells me that this was all extremely coordinated. They've known about this for a while, and clearly Dondi had the statement ready. I'm not sure if they knew they were going to do it right now, but I think
Well, I think
they,
there was a meeting with the NCAA on Monday. I think the NCAA was
yes,
on their campus. They knew about it in December because Danny
yes.
White and Plowman requested a meeting with Charlie Baker and the NCAA, which was denied, which is just unbelievable. Like that, a complete clown show there in Indianapolis. Just the way nothing they do is logical. Anyway, they're back on the campus Monday. I think that's kind of how all this stuff gets broke. That's when she sent the letter to the NCAA president. It was on Monday, which VolQuest and ESPN, they were able to do some reporting and get that letter. That's how that's kind of been put out there. But yeah, just ultimately, the NCAA should be a partner in this. NIL is here. It's not going anywhere. It can't go anywhere. They can't stop it. They can try to
No.
alter how it works or kind of regulate how it works, but even then they have very little to stand on. So that instead of being a partner with the schools and trying to help everyone navigate this, because it is the Wild West, we've been saying that for 2 years. It really is. Instead of helping everybody move forward, and how do we make this work for everybody, the student athlete, the schools, everything. They're like, no, you do what you think you need to do, and we'll set guidelines based on what you do, and then we'll play gotcha whenever we want to. And it's the most immature, childish way to approach anything. It's a terrible approach, so it's no surprise that this is how they're handling it.
They had, everybody's been saying, oh, you had 2 years to get your ducks in a row. The NCAA had 40 years to get their ducks in a row. The pony excess thing at SMU and the death penalty, what year did that happen?
80 something, late 80s.
Early 80s?
I
Players were
mean,
getting paid huge sums of money. Back then, players had huge market value. All 40 years ago, you know? And this train has been coming down the tracks this
really with
entire time.
the Ed O'Bannon thing. At that point, you
Oh, it
knew,
was over.
yeah,
That that was the true turning of the tide. And thank you to Ed O'Bannon for that with the whole NCAA football video game, yada yada. And you know that was huge in terms of really moving this along. And then obviously NIL fully broke the dam to make this happen. But the NCAA has had 40 years and they've done nothing. And they've been not just like hard headed is not even the right word, absolutely just refusing to do anything other than greedily collect their check on the backs of these players that don't get paid. That's it. That's all they've done. I say it every single time. They provide nothing of value, especially in college football and college basketball. They organize the tournaments for basketball, soccer, some things like that. There's a little bit of value there, but their cons far outweigh their pros in every single way because otherwise, all they just do is come around and bother you and then stick their greedy hand out and go, no, pay now, pay me now, money now, give it to me. And that's their entire function is, that wrapped up just like that. And they're an embarrassment. And choose any kind of ridiculous description that you want for them. They're terrible in every way. And I've seen a lot of people saying like, oh, well, we got to keep them around for to organize the tournaments and these things. No, you don't. You don't. You really don't. Because you could push them out and then do it yourself. There's enough infrastructure in all these organizations and all these conferences to do that yourself. Yeah, it would be kind of like NIL now. It would probably be a little painful for a couple of years. You figure it out. There's so much money flowing through all of this. It's not like they're just going to let it. You know what the NCAA doesn't organize? The college football playoff. And that's the biggest thing that there is in college sports. It's the biggest moneymaker. They don't do that. You could easily do this. So I resent every part of that. People defending the NCAA in any way, abolish them completely. They can go away. That's not going to happen.
You have to get ahead of it. That's the problem before is that you haven't got ahead of this stuff. It's going to happen or it's going to be the result of this lawsuit or the next lawsuit. They're not going to stop. And then you're going to be left scrambling. So why not just get ahead of it and figure it? It's clear where this is all going. I mean, we see it. Well, it's happening fast too.
So we didn't even say what happened on that second day. I didn't get there. I talked about the statement from Spire Sports lawyer. And then this news drops. The Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, or I guess you could say the Attorneys General from Tennessee and Virginia, both, are filing a lawsuit against the NCAA that they've saying that the NCAA has violated the Sherman Antitrust Act. And essentially, as I said earlier in the show, saying that what the NCAA does in their enforcement is illegal. And in many states, including the state of Tennessee, that is 100% true. That is the case. The NCAA will lose these cases. The NCAA has already essentially lost this case with the case that that Plowman mentioned in her statement. I can't remember the
Alston, which they were shut out in. It was like 9-0.
Yes, it was unanimous. It was a unanimous decision from the Supreme Court that what the NCAA is doing is illegal. I mean, and that was a shot across the bow for them to clean up their act, and they did nothing at all. And now is the time when they get completely pantsed, when they get humiliated.
Their last line of defense now is begging for an antitrust exemption. That's their last thing that they're trying.
That's not happening.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, no. And so I mean, this is from them is just the loser bureaucrats at the NCAA begging to keep their jobs, essentially, but saying that, oh, this, we still serve a purpose here. They don't. We all know that, and that's about to be proven out in court, hopefully. But that's all this is. I mean, I've seen some people speculate. I saw some of this on Twitter today. I'm just like, oh, maybe this is the NCAA bringing its own demise so that they can get out of football, so that they can, save a little bit of face and pull out of college football. And then they, at the end of this, they can just say like, okay, we'll just be the organizer of the NCAA tournament. We'll collect our check there, and we'll do the non-revenue sports and all of those things. And then that they can just kind of handle it that way. I don't know. I don't believe that.
Football's the moneymaker.
Yeah,
it's all about money. I mean, Charlie Baker's whole thing about not wanting to to make the players employees is that there's not enough money out there. And it's like, are you serious? If you would just let the collectives go to work, they're raising money from their fan bases and their donors and their boosters to pay tons of money. Carson Beck reportedly seeking $4 million to return to Georgia in 2024, which he is returning. So I'm guessing he got it. Also, NCAA, maybe you should head to Athens if you're worried about this plane ride.
Oh, they're
I
not going to do
mean,
that.
the money is there. You just don't know how to manage it at all. And you don't want to see athletes getting what they're getting. Like that's what it boils down to ultimately.
Yes. Well, let's. I got on such a roll. I forget that I have to do this. This show is brought to all of us by our awesome sponsors. We got to give them a shout out right here. Farm Bureau Health Plans. Farm Bureau Health Plans have been serving Tennesseans for over 75 years. Much has changed in Tennessee over the years, but some has stayed the same. Farm Bureau has always valued personal relationships, especially when it comes to good health and good service. Plan on Farm Bureau Health Plans for health, dental, and vision. For better coverage, better rates, and better service, go to fbhp.com/ATOZ or walk into one of their 200 plus locations across the state. That is fbhp.com/ATOZ. Farm Bureau Health Plans, shout out to them. They're the best. Now, so that was the lawsuit that happened. That comes out from the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee. He drops that on Twitter, and all of us go like, yes, here it is. I mean, especially me. I had said it the day prior. I said, this is the opportunity to sue the NCAA, to humiliate them, and to hopefully bring their demise. And then I'm gifted. Like I said, it was Christmas morning. That tweet dropped, and I went, oh my, I texted y'all in our group text. And I said, here we go, baby. This is it. This is the thing that I've been hoping for. And it's not like it's the University of Tennessee suing the NCAA. It is the state of Tennessee, the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, and the Attorney General of the state of Virginia bringing this lawsuit. And I predict
that adds so much validity having a co-plaintiff from another state like that.
Absolutely. I mean, and I think they won't be the last either.
No, probably not. And
Just
there are some other lawsuits concerning the NCAA right now. This isn't necessarily the first, but it's the first of this nature and the first that can threaten to strip away all power that they have to enforce anything when it comes to recruiting violations, basically.
Yes. I mean, this one, like I said earlier, Andy Staples called it the big one. This one is very, very real and a very serious, I would say, existential crisis for the NCAA. I think. People were speculating whether Nico would play or not. First of all, Nico's going to play. I think the real question is, will the NCAA exist in 3 years? Or will I think for certain it won't exist in its current form. But the real question is, can they hang on to anything at all? I mean, as I've said, probably they beg for their life and get to hang on to basketball and the non-revenue sports. But regardless, we keep getting sidetracked. But the lawsuit comes down, and what came along with it was this fully coordinated thing. They had this loaded up. Every part of this. I mean, clearly, as we said, they've known about it since December, and they formulated this plan where they went Attorney General, lawsuit, and then Randy Boyd, the president of the university, makes a statement. Danny White makes a statement. State representatives started making statements. The governor of the state of Tennessee had a statement ready. And it was just this onslaught all at once where they dropped this bomb of a lawsuit on the NCAA, which leads us now, I mean, we're doing this in real time, leads us now to a statement from the NCAA. And honestly, I haven't read this, so let's just read it in full. This was the NCAA's statement. Ralph Russo from the AP posted this on Twitter. I'm looking at it, and this was at 4:30 this Wednesday afternoon. Here it is, quote, while the NCAA generally does not comment on specific infractions cases, it is important to remember that NCAA member schools and conferences not only make the rules, but routinely call for greater enforcement of those rules and holding violators accountable. And actually, Dondi Plowman says that. She opens her statement, if you go back and look, she says, we needed clear rules, and you did nothing. You provided no clear rules. You provided these murky guidelines and this absolute nonsense and did nothing with any kind of backbone. So that now going back, quote, in recent years, this has been especially true as it relates to establishing and enforcing a consistent set of national rules intended to manage the name, image, and likeness environment. This legal action would exacerbate what our members themselves have frequently described as a, quote, Wild West atmosphere, further tilting competitive imbalance among schools and neighboring states and diminishing protections for student athletes from potential exploitation. The NCAA remains firmly committed to protecting and expanding student athletes' NIL rights and opportunities. Give me a break. However, our membership has steadfastly supported the prohibition on impermissible recruiting contacts, booster involvement in recruiting prospects, the use of NIL offers uh, as recruiting inducements. And that's what it says. What an absolute joke. That's absolutely ridiculous. They got completely pantsed. They're panicking. That's basically them saying we want to help with NIL, but we can't. What about what? Like that's just. I mean, they're done. This. Oh man, what
they're still missing the point of
exactly?
yes, everybody wants it to be more structured. I mean, I think
100%.
fans, players, especially coaches, recruiting, assistants, everybody wants it to be more structured, but that's not what they're focused on. They're focused on where did you go wrong, and Tennessee really didn't go wrong. I mean, remember when this NIL deal with Nico uh, was drafted and signed and all that? Tennessee was in the middle of an NCAA investigation. Danny White and Josh Heupel, while other coaches are endorsing these collectives, they would not publicly comment on Spire Sports for months. The whole summer of 2022, they never said a word. It wasn't until November 2022, late in the season, that they finally felt comfortable kind of endorsing and speaking about it publicly and asking
The
for people
state
to
of
donate.
Tennessee. The state of
Yeah,
Tennessee signed off on it.
right.
Let's
There.
say
Yeah, that's right.
they made it legal essentially for there to be a connection there between the collective and the
So
university.
everything they were doing was buttoned up. They knew that this would be subject to scrutiny. It was one of the first deals like this. And since then, it's probably pales in comparison to some of the deals that are out there. The Jaden Rashada deal was what, like 13 million or something? He's a
Yeah.
4-star recruit. I mean, we mentioned Carson Beck asking for 4 million for 1 year, his last year. I mean, these deals are insane. I mean, Shador Sanders and his siblings just bought Deion Sanders a mansion in Colorado. Like, what are we doing when we're okay? The contract was good, but Nico flew on a plane that a booster or that Spire Sports, which they call a booster because that looks different in their wording,
Yeah.
that the collective arrange. Like, we don't even really know the details of that. They just arrange it. Whose plane was it? How did any of this come to pass? That's that in this current climate, that's what you're worried about. Not Caleb Williams looking over the skyline of Los Angeles in his skyrise penthouse after he transferred to USC from Oklahoma.
Oh boy.
That's good. That's okay. This plane ride, that's very concerning and could ruin amateurism in college sports. Like, what? What?
It's
How?
such a joke, man. It's such a joke. Because I obviously, and this is what I've said. This has always been my conclusion. This it's a amateur NFL. That's all this is. And
Yes.
you just have to structure it that way. That's the end of all of this. That is how this ends. And we're getting there slowly, piece by piece by piece. Hopefully this really expedites that process. But that's everybody knows it. Even that was part of what Plowman said in this is that your rules are completely unworkable and everybody knows it. Like it's not like this is some unknown thing. Charlie Baker knows it. All the stooges at the NCAA know it. All of these media losers who work for the NCAA know it. Like it's all out there. Dance is so stupid, but I will say I'm at least happy that Tennessee gets to be the forefront. That we get to be the person that finally punches through this BS, this any amount of facade that's left. Not that there's much, but that we find to be the one that goes, no, we're just gonna tear down this house of cards because it's over. This is over, and we all know it. Now, obviously, your guess is as good as mine as far as how this, if and when Tennessee wins this lawsuit, how exactly that you know turns out, what becomes of that. With the NCAA, I mean, obviously, I am of the opinion that you could tear it all down, throw them to the curb, and everyone will be just fine. Nothing will happen that is nothing will happen that's worse than what it is now. How can you look at this and say like it could get worse than that? How can it get worse than this? Than this clown show? How could it get worse than that? I I don't know.
I mean, all we're going to be
But
missing
I
is
genuinely I
the NCAA going, hey, we know everybody's making NIL money, but did you cover your tracks good enough to make it look good on paper? That's all they're doing.
literally. Uh it just is. I mean, I would say it's unbelievable, but it's not. It's completely believable. This is what the NCAA has always done, and occasionally, these schools have gotten legal wins over on them. North Carolina, catching them on the technicality of the paper classes being available to everyone. Technically, the paper
Nothing
classes were in the
happened to
system.
them.
Yeah, like occasionally the schools have gotten the NCAA, but this is really the one where you can. This wouldn't even be getting the NCAA. This would be tearing down the NCAA. At least I think in the college football realm. And so
Please let it happen.
I know, man. Every bit of analysis that I've seen is that essentially the NCAA has no leg to stand on. The fact that you have Tom Mars behind all of this, who's already beaten up the NCAA a ton. I really like the prospects here of what should happen. I'm giddy, to be completely honest. I'm just really happy that it's happening because I also believe I don't know the exact legal jargon. I'm not a lawyer, but I think it's what an injunction to end NCAA enforcement by February 6th or something like that, and declare it unlawful. Essentially, I think that was part of this lawsuit. I want to say Craig mentioned that. I think in our conversation about it. But I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's some element to it like that where there's going to have to be a judge's decision here very, very soon.
Well, the last one went against them with the 2-time transfer deal, which like that kind of surprised me that it was so quick, and so I thought that one might stand a chance. Not that was deep in the weeds on that one, but from a surface level, I thought 1-time transfer might stand a chance to stay like it was, and it didn't. And that's why that's why Gerald Mincy was able to leave. It's why other guys can leave and come back now. And that whole thing is to make money, so that just to me kind of strengthens the case here that the state of Tennessee and Virginia has against the NCAA. Which even back to the Pruitt stuff, that whole deal over like $60,000, and you all this publicity and everything that came with it. Like the NCAA is picking and choosing. I mean, Nick Saban's down there, keeping Dodge in business. Not anymore, I guess. He's retired, but recruits way before NIL. Everybody's known. If you're a recruiting analyst, you know the backroom deals. Everybody knows. If you have anything to do with high school athletes ever, you've known this. And the NCAA just selectively goes after certain programs. They haven't went after Alabama like this or Georgia. I mean, I guess Ohio State there in the mid 2000s, early 2000s with the tattoo deal, which was also completely absurd. And then just to choose this to make a stand, I do not understand, but happy for Charlie that it was Tennessee, I guess.
It's a crazy hill to die on for the NCAA. But before we wrap this up, we got to pay all our bills. Tell you about ZenSports. We've been talking about them all season long. They're the fastest, or sorry, I'm looking at the wrong. Oh, look at this. This shows how prepared I was. I was too distracted. I opened up the wrong the wrong ZenSports read. Here we go. We've been talking about it all season long. Here it is. The new sports betting app exclusively in the state of Tennessee. And when you sign up for a ZenSports account, you will receive up to a $1,000 no danger first wager. That's right. When you place your first bet in ZenSports, you can be reimbursed for the amount of your bet up to $1,000 maximum if that bet loses. But there's even more good news. ZenSports is rolling out its brand new VIP rewards program. This new VIP rewards program will allow top-tier customers to earn more bonuses, comps, and perks. The VIP program is by invite only, so if you feel your ZenSports play qualifies for VIP consideration, check out the program at zensports.com/VIP. No other sportsbook will offer you a premier sports betting experience with 24/7 top-tier customer support and faster withdrawals like ZenSports. What are you waiting for? Get going and download their app at zensports.com today. ZenSports. Betting just got better. If you have a gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. You must be 21 or older in Tennessee to bet. ZenSports. Go download it. All right, let's finish up. I was trying to think of what other elements there were. Obviously, again, you could talk about this from 10,000 different angles. Because you even saw it today. Nico posted an Instagram of Dondi Plowman, and I forget exactly what it said. It said like I didn't know that Dondi Plowman versus the NCAA was the battle I needed him
or something.
yeah, something like that. I don't know. There's just been so much with this because it's sent this giant shockwave through everything, and as we've said, you have the opposing fan bases that want to see Tennessee, get got, and then there's been other people who actually know a thing or two and have been paying attention to the college football landscape, and they're on Tennessee's side, and Florida and Tennessee now need to be united, and obviously Tennessee and Virginia are being united, and it's really this is a serious moment in. I mean, we're laughing about it, and I think this is going to really turn out just fine for Tennessee. But this is a serious moment for college football. It's a turning point. I think. From the outside looking in and what we can see, this is really going to be something that could change the entire landscape of college football and maybe college sports in general. And as I said, I mean, I'm kind of giddy to see to see what happens. I think we're gonna see action from this in the next 2 weeks, and we'll be able to talk about it. There's a little promotion for you. Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, live on the A to Z Sports Nashville YouTube channel. Zach and I will be here talking about it on the Big Orange podcast. But anything else before we get out of here, Zach?
Yeah, I think you said it well there. I think this is the sport for the last, really since COVID. I mean, the introduction of NIL and the prevalence of the portal. It's really it's going somewhere, and everybody's kind of trying to figure out where it's going, when it's going to get there, what it's going to look like. I feel like this is the first big move that's kind of going to point it in a direction and set it on the course that, the next generation will grow up with this version of college football. I think this is the beginning of finding that direction. And I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but I said, I do think this is the beginning of that turning point, kind of like you said.
This is the first paragraph of Dondi's statement to the NCAA. The leaders of intercollegiate athletics owe it to student athletes and their families to establish clear rules and to act in their best interest. Instead, 2.5 years of vague and contradictory NCAA memos, emails, and guidance about name, image, and likeness has created extraordinary chaos that student athletes and institutions are struggling to navigate. In short, the NCAA is failing. I'll leave it there. The NCAA is failing, and what a day it is. I'm happy to see it. So we will talk about what happens going forward, obviously, and I mean, yeah, hopefully this really does turn out the way that it looks like it's gonna. Because man, that would be so incredible. Charlie Burris, Zach Reagan, thanks to everybody for watching. Couldn't do it without you. We really appreciate it, and we will talk to y'all next week.
See you guys later.